How many selves are rolling around in your head? We always talk about like your inner child or your highest self, but I think there's a lot more in there than you know about. So if you had to guess, would you say like 2, 3, 4, 10, 12? Well, in this episode, we're going to talk about them, how their development might have been interrupted and how that interrupted development might causing you to be less than your most wonderful, majestic self. I have the opportunity of speaking with Beatriz Victoria Albina, who is a master certified somatic life coach, UCSF trained family nurse practitioner, and a breathwork meditation guide with a passion for helping humans socialized as women realize that they are their own best healers by reconnecting with their bodies and their minds, no matter how many psyches are in that said mind, so they can break free from codependency, perfectionism, and people-pleasing and reclaim their joy. This episode is from one of the most intelligent people that I've met. This episode is coming from a true expert, not someone who took somebody else's course and is now spouting their stuff. This episode with Beatriz Victoria is about you learning from someone who does this, someone who is truly able to speak through a body of work, break it down in normal language to help you take your first steps towards being a happier, more integrated human. If you would like to feel less codependent, less like the savior, less like the martyr, less like the last one on everyone's list, including your own, so that you can step into your power, grow your business, build a professional speaking career, whatever is on your dream bucket list, then this is the episode you need to start with. You'll hear in the episode that I'm sending this episode to a bunch of people that I know because I believe in their potential. And I'm including this episode for everyone to hear because I believe in yours. Leia, you don't know me. I don't need to. I know your radically authentic self because it's connected to mine. And I believe in my radically authentic self and its infinite power and wisdom, which means I know that you have the same radically authentic self within you. And it deserves a voice. It deserves to shine. It deserves to have you live a life where you are happy and fully empowered. And in this episode with Beatriz Victoria, we will be able to start you on your way. Woo! Can you tell I'm excited? I didn't even know I was this fired up, but I am. All right, let's go.
Welcome to the Flourishing Entrepreneur Podcast with Alea Harris. If you're looking for actionable ways to overcome communication and differentiation challenges by sharing radically authentic stories, you are in the right place. Listen in and learn how to stand in the power of your unique narrative to transform your personal life, business, and workplace culture. And now, your host, award-winning international speaker, strategic storytelling consultant, and Japanese whiskey lover, Ruby Coral's mom, Alea Harris.
Hello, Bea Victoria Albina. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Flourishing Entrepreneur Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for having me.
I love it. I love it. I have already told our lovely listeners why this is the episode for them, and I hope their ears are piqued. But just in case they need to hear it from you, can you tell them very shortly who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Beatriz or Bea Victoria Albina. I am a functional medicine nurse practitioner by training. I have a master's degree in public health. I say that to get like the real nerd stuff out of the way. I am a master certified.
Legit. Okay, God.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I studied a lot. I'm a nerd. Come on now. I am a master certified somatic life coach. I am a somatic experiencing practitioner. I trained with the Somatic Experiencing Institute. I am host of the Feminist Wellness Podcast, and my passion is to help humans socialized as women to break free from codependent, perfectionist, and people-pleasing habits, because that sucks. And we can live life with a lot more joy, more joie de vivre, just like a lot more pleasure when we are really prioritizing prioritizing interdependence over codependence. And that applies to our businesses as well, which I know we're going to get into in a lot of detail.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing. So people talk about codependence and perfectionism and all of those words. And I think there's an innate understanding of why those are wrong or bad. But then when I'm really thinking about it, I was like, well, I think I've heard them so much that they've lost their zing.
Right.
Yep. Like, so
Mhm.
why is it bad? How are those things harming people?
Yeah. So I think you're right that the words have lost. I loved what you said. They've lost their zing. Like, it really sums it up. I think the words have become meow, meow, meow. Like, we're just like, sure, whatever, codependent. Like, it doesn't mean anything anymore. So I actually came up with and trademarked a new word or a new term, which is
New
I know, right?
word.
Yeah.
Okay, drop it. Boom, boom, boom. New word, go.
Emotional outsourcing.
I love it. Emotional outsourcing. Okay, what is emotional outsourcing?
Emotional outsourcing is when we chronically and habitually source our sense of safety, belonging, and worth, the three essential human needs, from everyone and everything outside of ourselves instead of from within, to our own detriment.
What is the detriment? So when you
Like,
are completely emotionally outsourced, why does life look bad for you and what does it look like?
because you're the last person on your to-do list, if you're even on there, right? So let's break it down, our sense of safety, belonging, and worth. So when you don't feel safe in yourself, with yourself, you don't trust yourself. You can't make strong decisions. You can't be a leader, right? You're inherently a follower. If you are leading, it's from a false self and not from a true embodied presence. And talk about embodiment, like, you cannot be somatically at home within a self you don't feel safe being. Right. And so we're living unintentionally, habitually from a default instead of from choicefulness and agency. And that sucks because we're not the bosses of our own lives. Do you think I'm pretty? Do you think I'm smart? Do you think I did a good job? Right. And it can be really subtle or really overt, but we don't trust us. We need everyone and everything to let us know it's safe to be alive, much less to be ourselves. That's really challenging. Yeah.
That sounds painful and is a challenge. You
Yeah.
also said something that I'm not trying to be so nitty-gritty with you, but I just have some of these things. One, I know that you can take me there because of all of that darn schooling that you've gone through, and I have this innate trust for your ability to explain things better than other. People just kind of glaze over things. You said something like, rather than from inside of you, you're
Yes.
outside rather
Yeah.
than from inside. And I think when people say that, it's almost like, well, is there some special room inside of me that I don't know? Or where on the inside are we
vestibule.
located? What does
Right.
that actually mean?
Yeah. So it's sort of two things. So it's relying on our sense of capital S self as a valid and valuable thing. Meaning,
Thank you. I was like, and we're going to break that
always.
down.
It's very, like, I taught kindergarten, I taught university. It's very nurse. Like, I'm going to make the statement and then make sure you understood it.
Oh, this is perfect.
Yeah. This is what I do. So, capital S self. So our most authentic self is the one that takes a back seat in childhood when we're getting the messages that we are not okay as we are. We should change to be loved. We are not valued, or we are not safe if we are ourselves. So if you're a very loud kid and your parents are two introverts who would rather be reading than parenting you, or watching TV than parenting you, or who are emotionally immature or absent. I mean, let's go with emotionally immature, because I feel like a lot of people our age, raised by boomers, are like, oh, right, those people were children. And I'm not trying to if you're a boomer and you're listening and you're like, not me, great. That's great. I'm very happy
Go
for
and
you.
look at your friends.
Yes. Yeah.
Because
I'm making
a common thing.
It is a very common thing, and for understandable reasons, given where they came from. And I think part of it's like we're rewatching Mad Men. And so I'm like, oh, those are the boomers as children.
I couldn't watch Mad Men once. I couldn't get through the first episode. I love the fashion. I love the misogyny was rough.
Oh my God. Yeah. For me, it's like, it reminds me of the importance of my mission and my work. Right. And that, like, in the 70s, a woman couldn't get a credit card without her husband's signature. Right. And so if I ever am like, oof, I don't want to put my all into this week's podcast of feminist wellness. No, put, as we say in Spanish, ponete las pilas, put the battery on and let's go, because this matters for every single human socialized as a woman on this planet right now. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
So, what does it mean to connect with yourself was the question I was asked. You like how I came right on back?
Yeah, that was good. Otherwise, that was what I was going to have to do.
Oh, okay, great. Well,
so
no,
I'm glad
leave it to me. So we learned that it's safer to be in a role than to be ourselves. To be the good girl, the good daughter, the good wife, to be the good fill in the blank instead of the real person, right? Because the real person has wants and needs. The real person has likes and dislikes. The real person isn't that a sort of malleable creature that the emotionally immature, absent, neglectful, overworked, overstressed, whatever parent can just like mold to their wanting, right? And so many of us had to put our loud self or our quiet self, our too fat or too thin, too whatever, too sensitive, to whatever self aside in order to get, oh, come here, kid, I'm proud of you. Come, kid, you did a good job. Kid, you whatever. Right? That true self had to go into the other room because it was clear they were not wanted in the living room of family life. And so we put them away. And we became the A+ student, the gold star student, the always shining. Look at my achievement. Don't look at me. Or the rebel kid, right? Look at my F-ups. Don't look at me. Or somewhere in between that was still a false version of self. And so this work to step out of emotional outsourcing is to reclaim all the versions of self that were left behind in the name of survival. So when you ask me, right, and we also left our bodies behind, right? Because so much of my work is about reclamation of the soma, and like whatever, somatics is like hashtag trending for better and worse, right? Some of it's, if I see someone selling a somatic workout one more time, I'm going to scream. I'm just going to scream, throw my phone out a window. Soma means body. Every workout is a body
Every workout is a soma.
Oh, come on.
That's just like when gluten-free was trending. I was like, this is a gluten-free apple.
This is gluten-free water, everybody.
Right.
Talk about Mad Men, right? My goodness gracious. Good times.
So one of the things that I like that I've been like, so by the way, you know, dear listener, if you're listening, this is probably not your first episode.
Dear
listener. Girl,
hey. Hi.
As a reminder, I am on mute when they're talking because I am usually agreeing so hard that it's really distracting. And I was agreeing so hard when Beatriz was talking. So, but one of the things I want to go back to is one, the work that I do is all around your radically authentic self. So that self that you're talking about that gets left behind, that is the core of the work that I do as well. The storytelling.
Yeah.
I believe that any differentiation you're looking for, any clarity you're looking for, any guidance you're looking for comes from that piece.
Yep.
But something I heard you say that I thought was incredibly interesting was all of the selves you've left behind.
Yes.
So not just that particular self.
Yeah.
Other selves. What does that really look like? Can you expand on that concept?
Yeah, so we can use a couple different frameworks or different lenses. So we can use internal family systems, which is the work of Richard Schwartz, PhD, which looks at sort of this concept that at different points in our development, it's like a different self sort of broke off. And he has a very specific structure, firefighters, managers, et cetera. But we can sort of more colloquially and more generally think about the different selves within us that hold different energy. Right? That hold different stories, that hold different experience, that hold different ways of being. I mean, I think most of us can sort of look at our day-to-day life now and like, we're different in our marriages than with our best friend. We're different with our best friend than our mom for most of us.
However, baby, you are my best friend. I love you. Hey, Brandon. I mean,
cutie.
but there's also
But
like my actual best friends. So yes, do
right,
continue.
right. I mean, yes, and definitely. But you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think we sort of abstract this and put it like in the literature to the point where it like feels like it's not our lived experience. But you at the supermarket is not you at home at the dinner table, right? And so same for our 4-year-old self and our 8-year-old self and our 12-year-old self. It's as though these energies persist within our psyche. And what we can then bring in somatic experience as a lens to talk about incomplete tasks, developmental tasks. As we grow up, I mean, if you think about the sort of basic tasks, right? Potty training, learning to hold a fork, learning to throw overhead, right? These are all milestone tasks that the pediatrician or the family nurse practitioner will notice, right? So too, within our psyche, there are developmental tasks like individuation. I am not my parent is not me, right? I am this, right? Where we start to complete these tasks of creating a whole integral psyche and self. And for many of us, those tasks were interrupted by developmental trauma. So
Like what?
there's,
What's
yeah,
an example? Okay,
yeah.
because I'm like, oh my god, the
What is
individual.
that?
What did you call
Individualization.
individualization?
It's a lot of,
Mine was interrupted, and I'm like, so she's about to
yeah.
tell me what's wrong with me, and I'm
Nothing.
totally into
There's
it.
nothing
Because as
wrong
soon
with
as you
it.
said that, I'm like, well, obviously, I know that I am Alea Harris. My mom
Mhm.
is Denise Snipes, right?
Mhm.
However,
However,
I'm still. I've gotten much better, but has taken me years to not take responsibility for
well,
her.
that's exactly where we're going, right?
Yeah.
So examples include parentification,
Hmm.
right? And so parentification is when a child takes on a parent role to their own detriment. And I put that asterisk there because white supremacy. And so we can, within the confines of white supremacy, white settler colonialism, that system will see any family-based system, intergenerational care system is problematic and pathologizable. That's whiteness, right?
Oh
Which
wow!
all
I
in a
never
row.
really thought about that.
Yeah, it's chapter 2 of my book. We talk a lot about whiteness and these
And I'm
concepts.
sorry,
And
what was the name of your book, and where can we buy
oh,
that?
thank you. My book is End Emotional Outsourcing, an intersectional feminist guide to overcoming codependency, perfectionism, and people pleasing. And it hits the shelves October 2025.
Oh,
Is
dang,
that
I gotta wait. And
I
it's so
know.
exciting, but I'm just like, I was literally like, so add to no.
Oh, you're so sweet. I'll come back. I'll come back and we'll talk
You
about
can
it more.
definitely come back
Okay, great.
because the
Once
list
the
of questions I
pre-sales
have
ready.
is growing
Ooh,
rapidly. But you
excellent.
continue. We're talking
Excellent.
about
I shall.
individualization and
And
what did you say,
parentification.
parentification.
Parentification. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, so listen, it's beautiful for kids to take care of the other kids to a limit, right? To be part of an intergenerational, interdependent household system, as long as they're having the chance to, also be kids and not be a mini parent, because that parent is whatever, right? Right. So when we are in that parent role or in the role of therapist for our parents, right? Best friend for my mom is my best friend. I have some questions. I'm not inherently problematizing. I have some questions, right? Because roles are really important. And so those developmental tasks of individuating, of becoming you, of knowing who you are, what you want, what you prefer, need to happen. And if they don't get to happen, there's a stunting in that emotional growth, right?
So then what happens to, I'm just going to say, like,
Yeah.
let's say it's psyche D, because I'm sure like by the time that this is happening, some other psyches have already happened. So let's
Sure.
say that this is psyche D, and that should be going through the individualization process, and something cuts it short. What happens to psyche D?
Yeah, if we don't feel safe within ourselves, knowing who we are, someone else has to tell us. So think about how many of your friends were totally into camping when they started dating that guy who was into camping. And then they were like,
What
wearing a football jersey
I
when
was
they,
the football one. Camping, I've always kind of like,
but you know what I mean, right?
yeah,
She
no,
was like
mine was
zero.
football. That was the
Right.
football one. Or
Right.
all of the things. I can think of all of the things.
Right.
You know what's a good example of this that I don't know, but I can see is the Kardashian, the littlest one. Or the littlest one in stature. There's Kim, there's
Candy
Chloe.
cane?
Kim,
Oh,
Chloe,
I don't.
and
Candy cane.
God, I wish my listeners would
Corolla.
know.
I
It's
don't.
the one who, when she married the rocker, all of a sudden she went from normal Kardashian aesthetic to like everything is black and goth and dark.
Sure. Whatever. Right.
So it's like that. Chloe, Kim, Courtney, that's her name. Courtney Kardashian. There we go. Talking about individualization and Courtney Kardashian. Anyways, so my question though is like, so it gets cut off. You don't feel safe. But then in my mind, at least when you're talking about this, I'm imagining almost like your brain as a bowl of marbles, and each one is like these psyches rolling around and like.
Such a great metaphor. I love it.
So what happens? Like, do they interact with each other? Do they harm the other psyches being developed, or do they just sit dormant? Are they what cause your limiting beliefs? Like, what's happening in this bowl of marbles?
I mean, so I'm really careful to be evidence-based, and I don't know.
There's no evidence around bowls of marbles and.
Oh, no. Well, I mean, of course, the Swedish Bowl of Marbles Institute has been studying this for eons. You know how those Swedes are.
Yes, and they're marbles.
Absolutely. So I'll just pass the mic to the Swedes.
Yeah.
Here's what matters. You're a grown-ass woman, and you want to go away for the weekend with your friends, but I don't know. I should really check in with my mom first, who's also a grown-ass woman, and make sure she doesn't need anything this weekend. But she's perfectly cogent and capable and like fine. But there's this story within you that it's my job to take care of her. Right? You were all set. So another one, you're all set to go away, go out of town with your girlfriends. And your son at college complains that he's got all these papers and gosh, could you help him? And you cancel your girls' trip. Or you spend the whole girls' trip worrying about him. I mean, a little like, oh man, I hope the kid does a good job. Hope he's all right. That's beautiful. That's interdependent. That's just love. Fine. Right? But when it's to our detriment, that's where we need to like have a little consciousness. Are we continually putting ourselves last because self is not safe? Are we not speaking up? Are we avoiding conflict? Are we really deferring to others constantly? Or just in situations that really count or feel close to the chest, right? Like family relationships, our close people is when this mostly comes out. Are we making ourselves small so someone else can feel big? Oh, the fixer. That's a great one, right? The fixer, the martyr, the savior, the saint. I talk about these archetypes in my book. You know, the fixer is like constantly trying to make sure no one's upset. I used to have this friend who pretty much every time I would tell her I was upset, oh, well, you know, that's really not a problem, and would try to talk me out of my feelings. That's a past tense relationship.
I was going to say, like, and that's a great friend.
Right. But in her mind, it was so uncomfortable for her. If I was unhappy, she couldn't allow it. She couldn't allow me to have my feelings. Right.
So I know people like that.
Yeah. You call them and you say, I'm really lonely. And they say, well, I'm lonely too. I mean, what's the big deal, right?
Oh, Jesus Christ. That is so annoying. It's so annoying. Like, can't I just be in my loneliness and have it have nothing to do with you?
Right. But it can't. So here's the thing. When you grow up thinking you are the least important person ever, nothing about you matters at all, for nothing, it is so existentially frightening. It is so existentially terrifying because we are pack animals, humans. We are interdependent pack animals by definition. I need you, you need me. That's how this thing works. And so when we don't feel like any other human has our back, we need to insist they have our back. And it's subconscious. So we have no idea we're consciously doing it till you meet some schmuck like me who's like, hey, listen, need to talk to you about something, right? But we have no idea. We're invalidating people's feelings, negating their feelings, not allowing their feelings, trying to fix them, save them, right? The savior is another really great one. This person's constantly dating people who don't have a job, who don't have plans, who just don't, to save them, to lift them up, to try to make it okay. This is the person who their partner's family forgets their birthday and they're calling the siblings. Hey, listen, you forgot Tim's birthday. He's really upset. Could you give him a call? And they don't think, right. Yeah, and they don't think it's a problem because they're just being nice. But what's really going on is that insertion of self, because you're so worried on this existential level that you don't matter for shit. You don't matter to anybody. And so if you triangulate, right, and make yourself a part of every interaction, every energetic, then maybe you'll start to matter.
Okay, so I have serious people in my brain, very specific people in my brain. And so I'm going to send them this episode. And
I'm not triangulating.
I'm not even going to be passive aggressive about it and be like, she's talking about
directly aggressive.
Please. Yeah. Oh, I have no problem being directly aggressive.
I can tell.
I'm a directly aggressive human.
I love that about you. I've always loved that about you. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
So when these people listen to this is the moment. Hey, listen, if I sent this to you, listen up. Here's where Bea is going to tell you your first step. If that sounded like you, here's the first step that you need to do to have it not be you in the long term. Go.
So steps 1 through 2 million are really effing annoying because they're so antithetical to the US American way of living. And it's to slow down. But wait, I have so much to do. No, you don't. You put 1,000 things on your to-do list because you fear the existential void. Take a breath. I have feared it too. We all do to some extent. But when we are racing through life, when we are moving so fast, when we are doing all the things and we're not pausing and we're not checking in and we're not slowing down, we don't realize the defaults we're running on. We don't realize the unintentionality. Because how could we? How could we? And so I hear you. You've worked full time and have 3 kids and 2 dogs and the house to clean. I hear you. And you're probably over-functioning in all of those settings. You probably don't also need to be PTA mom and soccer coach and. It's okay if there's bunnies of dust under your couch. It is highly unlikely that anyone will die. As your primary care provider, I need to say highly unlikely, but really between us, no one's going to die. It's fine. Leave the dust bunnies. But that's the thing. We don't leave the dust bunnies because everything in our world is the arbiter of whether we are safe, okay, if we belong, right? If we are worthy. And so we make all this BS that has nothing to actually do with us so important when who cares? Who cares?
Yeah, I have noticed that where it's like, and I don't know, I don't think, and I'm going to have a slow down moment, which I have slow down moments every day. It's on my calendar. That in and of itself feels so funny to say that. I'm like, I'm going to slow down as long as it's scheduled. But when I do that, I'm like, okay, well, what's working, what's not working? But what I've noticed about the people, at least that I have in my mind, that are fitting what you're saying, is they will find any and everything to distract themselves. And if they don't have really anything going, then a small annoyance, they will find a way to maximize it, to blow it up.
Right, but it makes perfect sense if you feel like you're not worthy of care and attention. And if your nervous system is such a dysregulated hot mess that you don't know how to feel safe, not moving, of course you'll turn somebody cut their eyes at me at the supermarket into a friggin' World War 27. But with the fullest, deepest, most compassionate amount of love in my heart, of course you will. Right? Because your nervous system believes you have no other choice. A bunch of those marbles are set to no other choice but panic and drama. Because
the question is, because it sounds, if you haven't slowed down ever, really.
Ever.
Like, this is how you live your life.
Right.
And then I'm sitting here listening to this podcast that Alea sent me. Thank you for listening. And I'm terrified now. If I slow down and there's silence, what am I going to hear? I'm going to hear all of that voice that I've been trying to drown out with all of the other things that tells me I'm not worthy and I can't do it. And I don't think I'm strong enough to deal with that voice.
You might not be. So let's slow it down and go another direction. So I don't recommend we stare into the void as like a starting point. That's step 82. We're going to start with our morning beverage. Wait, what? That's right. Morning beverage. What are like most people drinking? Coffee. Why? I don't know. I just drink coffee. Yeah, but do you like it? I mean, I don't know. I just drink it. Let's look at the I don't know, right? How much of your life is the I don't know, I just, right? Do you love your career? I don't know. Do you love your marriage? I don't know. I just, right. That's the unintentionality. That's the habit. That's the default that keeps us from living our most expansive lives. So we start by asking teeny, teeny, tiny questions. Actually, I think you'll like this because you like metaphors, I can tell. I really don't like it when people tell people to take baby steps. I think that is ridiculous and obscene because a baby's foot, what is that? Like 2.5 inches? That's really big. It's really big. I'm not into it. In my world, we take kitten steps. Little,
oh my God, that's
tiny newborn kitten steps. Why? Because they're tiny and cute and sweet. And they remind us that kittens are kind of floppy and fall over by definition, which means that those little steps are meant to be floppy and sweet and fall over. And if they do, when they do, it's totally fine. We came in prepared. Right. So a first little kitten step is to say, do I actually want coffee? Do I want to listen to the radio and listen like radio news first thing in the morning? Or does it actually set me up for a pretty lousy day hearing about, terrible policies and genocides and like all this garbage that's going on? Do I really? Or am I shooting on myself again? So we start by stepping into tiny, tiny, tiny intentionality and seeing where we're living should lives. Because I don't live from should anymore or from obligation anymore. And it feels really amazing. And so that's where I would start. And from there, sure, take one breath and enjoy the silence, or maybe not enjoy, be with the silence of one breath and then keep moving. And we have to really incrementally over like a year get up to 1 minute of quiet a day. But not any faster. Unless your nervous system is regulated enough that you have that capacity. I married a Buddhist who can meditate. God, I think this weekend is going to go meditate for like 8 hours. Cool.
So yeah, that's
not me.
Not
me. It's not me. It's not me. Dance is meditative for me, right? Walking meditation. I have a trampoline.
Hot yoga currently.
Hot yoga. I love hot yoga.
Because you can't think about anything else.
Well, no, you'll like.
Besides like survival.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I go to this really hard hip hop class where like if your brain turns on for a millisecond, they're 12 steps ahead of you and you're standing there looking like an idiot in hammer pants,
The hammer pants.
Oh, it's a 90s hip hop class. I'm terrible, but I bring a lot of gusto.
That's all that matters.
That's good. I stand in the way back with a lot of verve and just end up doing salsa half the time or a little bachata.
Oh my God.
Listen, but if you think
you gotta give it what you got.
Listen, gotta give it what you can, because
we are gonna have to wrap because of the timing. I just looked. I was like, oh my God,
I know.
For like 30 minutes.
I know, it's so fun.
It's so much fun, and I'm just so fascinated at the way that you think about these topics. I'm like thrilled, and my brain is going a mile a minute in the best way. But I feel like I don't know. I'm going to ask you to do it relatively quickly, but I feel like I'm setting both of us up for failure
Uh-oh.
because the thing that
Uh-oh.
we haven't really touched
Mhm.
on that I just want to know a little bit of how it fits in is the somatic.
Oh, sure.
part.
When we disconnect from self, we have to disconnect from the body, right? Because what is more dangerous than to be present in a body that's not okay, right? That's too fat, too thin, too tall, too skinny, too sensitive, too loud, right? And so we disconnect from body and we become, particularly for those of us who have turned to intellectualization as a way to not be present in the body, we're like walking around living from the neck up, right? We're like little lollipop brains. And the body just becomes this vehicle, right? A much
What's a
ignored,
tangible way to know if you're doing that or not?
when something's funny, do you think that's funny? Or do you like actually laugh where your like body hurts? When someone's grandma dies, are you like, oh, honey, that's so sad? Because you know the social cues because you're not dumb. Or does it actually physically hurt in your heart?
Gotcha. That was really helpful.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
really helpful.
Yeah. And so if you're in the latter where you're turned off to your body, the kitten steps are the same, right? Of gently beginning to ask your body, not just your brain, do you want coffee? Do you want a shower? Do you
wanna shower?
right?
What
Do you want
do you want?
movement? What
Do
do
you want?
you want? Yeah.
That's really good to know. That's really good to know. I think that actually I'm pretty into my soma
That's
because
good.
I feel all of the things. I was like listening. I was like, oh my God, I'm actually doing something right. Like, yay, personal development. Hey,
Cutie pie. Hey.
that's for Alea and her personal development. But if people do want to take their kitten steps with you,
Yes.
where do they do that? How do they find you? How do they connect with you?
There are so many beautiful ways. So my podcast is called Feminist Wellness. It's for humans of all genders, and it's available everywhere podcasts are available. I have a special treat just for your listeners. Isn't it so exciting?
treats.
I love
It's
treats.
exciting.
I love it. So if you go to Beatriz, I'll just say it in English, Beatriz Albina.com/flourishing. You can download a suite of nervous system exercises, orienting exercises, inner child exercises, all sorts of meditations, downloadable for free, just for you, for listening to this show. To thank you for being here.
Wonderful. Sorry, I was typing into my search bar because I was
Oh, yeah.
all of the things.
Oh, how fun. Cutie pie.
And I was like, you've already denied me the instant gratification of the book. I already have to wait. Like, how can I get more of you as soon as possible?
You're too sweet. You're too sweet. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Really, truly, thank you for being here. I'd love to have you come back after your book is released.
Such a
We can get
pleasure.
more into the nitty gritty. Are there any final words of wisdom that you'd like to leave everyone with?
I know it can feel so trite, but when we base our life in remembering that each of us matters or we wouldn't be here, everything shifts. And so really allowing yourself to begin to practice considering maybe believing that. Do you see all the space I gave you? Right? Consider that maybe it's possible that you wouldn't have been born if you didn't matter. Right.
You
Right.
wouldn't have been born if you didn't matter.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful sentence.
Mm.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So act like it. Act
Yeah,
like you
so
matter because you do.
Oh, well, on that high and heartwarming note, and how I know that I'm somatic because I felt that in my chest.
Oh.
I am going to thank you so much for joining us here today. It's been a pleasure.
True delight. Thank you. Thank you.
Isn't it amazing how you can listen to one conversation and feel your life shift? That, for me, was this conversation. And I hope that it was for you, this conversation. Bab just totally enlightened a new way, at least for me, to think about why I fall into the stories and the limiting beliefs that I fall into, that lack of safety. And then it's also causing me to have a better look and re-examine the stories I'm telling, to take that breath, just slow down, to pay attention so that the nervous system regulation that I need can happen so that I can truly live as many moments as humanly possible from that place of my radically authentic self, that original self, the self that knows, the self that is present, the self that allows me to feel the feelings and connect with the people, which makes me a better business owner, which makes me a better professional speaker, which makes me a better human. So I hope that you are taking that step as well. I would totally recommend that you contact Beatriz Victoria to get started. Have a look out for her book that's coming out in October of 2025. And if you have any comments or questions, send me an email. My direct email is Aleya, Aleya, @aleyaharris.com. In the meantime, again, my name is Aleya Harris. This is the Flourishing Entrepreneur Podcast, and I'm sending you and yours lots of love, light, and abundance. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Flourishing Entrepreneur Podcast with Aleya Harris. Vibing with what you hear? Leave a 5-star review to spread the love, and be sure to click subscribe. We wish you love, light, and abundance. See you next time.